This is RetroFlag's PS1 case. Reminiscent of the PS1 combo that came out in 2002 with the detachable LCD screen. This is what we should have got instead of the PlayStation Classic, which was an absolute abomination. Recently, when Graham picked up the N64 RetroFlag case, I couldn't help but think how great this system looked. I was actually going to buy myself one, but I'm kind of a PlayStation guy and I wondered if they actually had a case for the PS1. And lo and behold, they did. What was cooler about this case is it comes with a 4.3-inch LCD screen, which makes this a truly portable device. So in this video, we're going to look into what this actually is, how this actually plays, and how great it actually is. In total, I paid £42 for the case with the LCD. Without the case, it was just £14, so well worth checking out. I got the Raspberry Pi 4, which this console is compatible with, for just £47. And for under £100, let's take a look at what this console can actually do and how good it actually is. But before that,
this video has been sponsored by PCBWay. PCBWay is your one-stop solution for all of your little DIY tech needs. They offer high-quality PCBs, 3D printing, CNC machining, laser cutting, injection molding, and every single kind of PCB that you could possibly imagine. Flexible ones, rigid ones, and so much more. They do specialize in prototype PCBs, and some of the projects have been done on this channel before, and upcoming projects just wouldn't have been possible without PCBWay. If you need a quick turnaround for your DIY project, this can be done in as little as 24 hours. It is a great resource for people wanting to build their own projects at a professional level. They also provide assembly services for smaller production runs as well as bigger and larger scale projects. Look at some of the amazing stuff that has been created using PCBWay, so check out PCBWay using the link in the description below, and thanks again for sponsoring this video.
thank you to PCBWay. Now let's get into the video. So for this build, I'm using a Raspberry Pi 4, the PiStation case, and I also got some heat sinks and some screws and a fan and an SD card. And the box looks so similar to the original PS1 case. It even has the little disc tray that flips up and you can store SD cards in there. The actual PiStation case came with a screen as well, which makes this just really special. So in the unboxing it, there are some screws, a screwdriver, everything you're going to need for the build, and this thing just looks insane. The little screen just plugs into the back, and it's even got little buttons on it so you can change like the volume or the contrast. It's really cool. And of course the PiStation just looks exactly like the PlayStation Classic basically. It's really cool. So when assembling this, it was pretty straightforward. You just have a couple of screws to screw into the back. You can't really mess it up, and the Raspberry Pi 4 just slots in there absolutely incredible. There was this little instruction manual, but we won't be needing that. So yeah, just take this off. It has a little thing inside that says not to have your SD card installed, so that was pretty obvious, but hey ho. So the first thing I did was put down the heat sinks just to try and make that, you know, really cool, really chilled, no bother whatsoever. Then I installed the fan, and it all just fits in there. There are 3 screws to insert, and then it's pretty much go time. It was really straightforward for a setup, and I think anybody, no matter what skill level you're at, could probably get away with doing this no problem. And then it's just a case of inserting a couple of the screws. It was a really easy build. I thought this was going to be a bit more difficult, but it looks great. I absolutely love this little thing, and it's just really nostalgic. This really was so easy to set up. Then when putting the screen on, it just slots into the back, and you don't really need screws or anything. I just use my finger just to literally turn it, and it's slotted in there lovely. You've got 2 extra ports that are accessible on the side and an Ethernet cable. So that was really straightforward. And I'm using a really small SD card because these games aren't huge. So I have got a 32GB SD card. So much like Graham, I am going for the Batocera build. So I went over to the Batocera website where you can download the image that you need to download for your specific Raspberry Pi. Mine's the Raspberry Pi 4. And then it's just a case of flashing it. And you just follow all the steps and you're away to go. Download the thing and then use the Raspberry Pi software to flash the image. And there's a couple of buttons you just got to press just to say, this is what I want to call it, this is what it is, and it was pretty much job done. It was really straightforward and really easy. Once that's done, it's just a case of putting the SD card back into the PlayStation or the PiStation, and then it just loads Batocera right up, and this thing looks absolutely amazing. I am very impressed with this, and it's the same sort of style and build as what Graham is using. Next up, we need to get this thing connected to the internet, because again, like what Graham did, I'm going to be connecting via FTP, and I am also connecting my PS5 controller for this. So I dumped a couple of ROMs on there. Now obviously I'm not going to tell you where to pick up your games, but there are ways on the internet, and I will say Google is your friend. One of the other things that I will say is in Batocera you can actually find games like homebrew games of games that people have made, and there's an abundance of them in there as well if you wanted to check out some cool stuff. I also wanted to set up a theme. Now I found this PlayStation theme and I was really happy with that. Once the ROMs were loaded over, it's then a case of having to scrape a lot of the games to get the artwork, the box work. It's really cool. It's got little videos to play. And finally, if you're a trophy hunter, you need to log up and set up an account with Retro Achievements. So this is one of the things that I really love about emulation, is you get to check out systems that you may not have seen before, and this MegaDuck system is really cool. It was a little handheld system that I've never personally seen before or played, so this is a really great way for me to be able to check out some of these really fun games. It's really crazy to me that there were only 24 games released for this system, so it's a good opportunity without having to spend a bunch of money to check them out. Now with the Raspberry Pi 4, I really wanted to check out an RPG that I've been longing to check out on the system, which is Skies of Arcadia. This is just a really good test of how well it emulates on the Raspberry Pi, and it had no problems, there was no stutters, and it just allows the opportunity to be able to play again some of these more expensive games that you may not have checked out before. Then I wanted to check out some of the Sega Saturn greatness that is on the system, and yeah, this also ran pretty well. Now it was weird because back in the day there was a lot of issues surrounding playing Sega Saturn games on Raspberry Pi systems, but this is really capable. There was no stutter, no frame drops, no issues. It looked great. Then another reason why it's worth picking up one of these systems, and that is for homebrew games and games that are still being released for the systems. Now, one of the Game Boy Color games that I wanted to check out was this Pokemon Crystal Clear ROM, and it is absolutely crazy that even in today's age there are still games being released, and this is a really viable way of playing these games. Not only that, it gives you the ability to play fan translations of really old games that never came out in Western territories. So one of the games that I really wanted to check out was Live Alive, and what I love about this is it got dropped on the Switch not so long ago, and there was an amazing pixel remaster for it, but this allows you to be able to play the original in its original state, but just with English translation, and you can't really go wrong with that. It just looks amazing. So going back to games that people are still making for retro systems, you can tend to buy the ROMs as well, and I know John Riggs definitely sells his ROMs on his website, and it's another way of being able to play his games. And again, I'm just really impressed with how well this just gets on with it. It just, yeah, you just dump the ROM on there, it finds the system for it, and you can play them. Another game that I got really addicted to recently was Fido's Tiles. Now this game is something that definitely would have come out on the original Game Boy. It's just a match 4 action puzzle game, and it is just a lot of fun. And if you haven't checked this game out, I highly recommend checking it out, because this is just the beauty of playing emulation. You get so much fun and enjoyment out of playing new games for old systems. And lastly, while talking about emulation and old game systems with new games, I thought I'd talk about Fix-It Felix Jr., which is the Wreck-It Ralph game, and there is a way of playing this. If you watch the film and you thought to yourself, I know, I want to play that game. So there's not really going to be any shockers here, but the N64 stuff plays absolutely beautifully on the Raspberry Pi 4. I checked out a couple of ROMs on there and it just worked. Yeah, this system is a very capable way of playing your N64 games if that's something that you really want to check out. The system itself looks absolutely beautiful, and even playing games like Wave Race 64, it just runs really nice and the game looks beautiful. And I will say, as much stick as I give the N64, I do actually love this game. So let's face it, I actually picked up this system to play my original PlayStation 1 games, and one of the first games I tried to check out was Ape Escape, but for some reason it didn't recognize the controller, and that means that I couldn't basically move. But all the other games I played were really capable, and I didn't have any other issues with this at all. It just allowed me to play my original PS1 favorites, from Parappa the Rapper to Final Fantasy VII. There was absolutely no issue whatsoever, and it looked really good. It looks really clean. There was no issues with PlayStation at all, and I absolutely love the fact that now I can play all of my old PlayStation games and games that I haven't got, and just have the ability to be able to use this. The emulation is pretty bang on. I had zero issues other than Ape Escape. That was the only one that I had issues with. Everything else just played absolutely beautifully. There was no issues with multi-disc games. There was no issues with any of the things that I chucked at this other than Ape Escape, and I'm not too sure why it wouldn't recognize the controller as a DualShock controller, but everything was really responsive and I had zero issues in playing any of these games. It just responded really well. There was no real lag. It was just plug and play. Everything that I wanted was on there. Now, obviously a few years ago we got stiffed with the PlayStation Classic. This just allows you to build up a library of games that you want to check out and play for yourself, and the games that you wished were on that system, you can put them on here and just have yourself a homemade PlayStation Classic. I know there was a way of messing around with the original PlayStation Classic, but it was a whole faff, and for the ease of use of this thing, it was really straightforward. Now, for one of my favorite things about this system as a whole is the fact that it's portable. You can take this outside and actually play with that little screen. Using a little battery pack, I was able to play this out in the wilderness, and that makes this a truly portable system. Now, that in itself is worth every penny of paying for this little system. It really is just an amazing little screen, and I absolutely love it. And it works perfectly outside. It's really fun, and you can just take this on the go. You can play this with your friends. You can just plug in another controller and just go. It's great. It is the RetroFlag Raspberry Pi console, and I am absolutely in love with this thing. It's just great to be able to take it out and about, and it's really capable of playing all of those console games. And what more could you possibly want? This is easily one of my favorite emulation devices now, and the fact that you're able to play so many games with very little storage needed, it's just fantastic. So tell me, guys, let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of this little console? I absolutely adore it. I think this thing is just the best thing ever. And if you're not into the PS1 look, you can always go for the N64 look. They also do a NES case and all sorts of different stuff. So there are so many options out there to play so many of these older games, and I just think this is a really great way of doing it. So I want to thank everyone for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you on the next one.